Have you ever wondered why the rich seem to get richer effortlessly while the rest of us struggle to make ends meet? What if I told you there's a hidden mathematical threshold that separates those who will always work for money from those who make money work for them? Stay with me until the end, because this financial revelation might completely transform how you think about wealth building. The journey to real financial freedom begins with one critical milestone that most people never reach: accumulating your first $100,000. This isn't just another arbitrary number. It's the mathematical tipping point where the entire game of wealth changes forever. But here's the brutal truth: that first $100,000 will likely be the hardest money you'll ever make in your life. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You save diligently for months, putting away a few $100s each paycheck, only to have an unexpected car repair or medical bill wipe out your progress in an instant. This frustrating cycle keeps millions trapped in financial mediocrity, constantly starting over, never gaining momentum. The challenge isn't what most people think. It's not unfair taxes, greedy corporations, or even low wages. Though these certainly don't help, the real obstacle is that without capital, you're essentially running on a hamster wheel, generating sweat equity with no leverage. You're trading time for dollars in a linear equation that can never scale. We've all seen those seductive compound interest charts showing how investing just $100 a month can make you a millionaire over decades. What these charts conveniently gloss over is the most inconvenient fact about compound interest. It's virtually useless if you don't have anything substantial to compound. When 10% of almost nothing is still nothing, the magic of compounding remains just a theoretical concept, not a wealth-building reality. Think about it. A 10% annual return on $1,000 is just $100. That barely covers a decent dinner for two. But that same 10% on $100,000, now you're talking about $10,000, likely more than most people can save in an entire year of disciplined budgeting. That's the power of having capital working alongside your labor. What you're about to discover in this video is the exact mathematical roadmap from $100,000 to your first million. I'll break down the precise steps, timelines, and strategies that can transform what seems like an impossible dream into an inevitable mathematical outcome. Now, imagine finally crossing that $100,000 threshold and feeling the psychological shift as your money starts working alongside you instead of you working exclusively for it. Suddenly, your investment returns aren't just rounding errors. They're meaningful contributions to your financial progress. This is where the snowball effect begins, but only if you're willing to push that snowball uphill first. If you found value in this breakdown of wealth building, hit that subscribe button to join our community of financial independence seekers. I share strategies and insights that you won't find in conventional financial advice. The harsh reality that few financial experts talk about is that being poor isn't just uncomfortable, it's extraordinarily expensive. This hidden truth creates a vicious cycle that traps millions in perpetual financial struggle. You finally discipline yourself to save $500, feeling that surge of accomplishment, only to have your car's transmission fail the very next week. Or you diligently accumulate $1,000 toward your investment goals, then discover your child needs emergency dental work. These aren't just random bad luck events. They're the predictable pattern of life without financial cushioning. When you lack capital, every setback becomes a financial emergency rather than a mere inconvenience. The wealthy person pays for repairs from their overflow. The person without capital takes on high-interest debt, setting their progress back months or even years. This fundamental difference creates two entirely separate financial realities existing side by side in our society. The transformation begins when you finally push through this resistance and cross the $100,000 threshold. Something remarkable happens in this moment, a profound mindset shift that's difficult to explain until you've experienced it firsthand. Suddenly, your money starts working alongside you in a partnership that feels almost supernatural. The psychological impact cannot be overstated. Think about the stark contrast. A 10% annual return on $500 is just $50, barely enough for a tank of gas. But that same percentage on $100,000 generates $10,000, likely more than many people can save in an entire year of disciplined budgeting. This isn't just a difference of degree, it's a difference of kind. Your capital is no longer a passive participant, it's actively contributing meaningful amounts to your financial journey. What's fascinating is how this milestone impacts your decisions moving forward. With $100,000 working for you, risk tolerance changes. Opportunities previously invisible suddenly become apparent. The market's natural volatility, once terrifying, becomes manageable because you have the cushion to ride out storms. Your relationship with money fundamentally shifts from one of scarcity to one of strategic partnership. This revelation doesn't just change your bank account. It transforms how you view yourself. You're no longer exclusively a laborer trading hours for dollars. You're becoming a capitalist, someone whose assets generate income without constant active effort. This identity shift creates cascading, positive effects across every financial decision you make. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining what most people misunderstand about labor and capital. The uncomfortable reality is that we're taught to revere hard work as the path to prosperity, but the mathematics reveal a completely different story. If any of these concepts are creating aha moments for you, write "financial awakening" in the comments. I'd love to know which ideas are resonating most strongly with your personal journey. The greatest illusion perpetuated in modern society is that hard work alone leads to financial prosperity. We've all been conditioned with this narrative since childhood. Work harder, put in more hours, and eventually you'll achieve wealth. This foundational belief shapes career decisions, education paths, and even personal identity for millions. But the uncomfortable revelation is that this premise is fundamentally flawed. Consider this sobering reality. If labor alone created wealth, coal miners would be billionaires. These individuals perform some of the most physically demanding, dangerous work imaginable, yet most will never escape financial insecurity. The reason exposes a hidden truth about wealth creation that's rarely discussed in conventional financial education. Wages are inherently capped, human effort cannot scale indefinitely, and crucially, time spent working does not compound. You can work 60, 70, even 80 hours weekly for decades, sacrificing health and relationships on the altar of productivity, and still find yourself with nothing when those paychecks stop arriving. This isn't pessimism, it's mathematical certainty. Labor, while necessary, operates within strict limitations that prevent it from ever generating true wealth by itself. The profound paradigm shift occurs when you understand the fundamental distinction between how labor and capital function. While your personal efforts are constrained by physical limitations, emotional fatigue, and the inescapable ceiling of hours in a day, capital operates under completely different principles. It represents the ultimate workforce, one that never complains, never needs time off, never makes emotional decisions, and crucially, never stops working. Imagine having employees who work 24 hours daily, 365 days yearly, never asking for raises, benefits, or recognition. These employees don't get sick, don't require management, and improve their productivity. The longer they remain employed, This isn't a fantasy, it's the precise reality of properly deployed capital. It quietly multiplies while you sleep, creating a parallel income stream that operates independently of your personal exertion. This revelation exposes the fundamental divide between the wealthy and everyone else. Until you cross that threshold where money works for you instead of you exclusively working for money, you remain what historical economic systems bluntly called a beast of burden, valued primarily for your labor rather than your capital-generating capacity. The wealthy don't simply have more money, they exist in an entirely different economic ecosystem, one where capital's exponential properties work in their favor rather than against them. This isn't about minor differences in financial strategy. It's about operating under fundamentally different rules of physics within the economic universe. When we examine the backstory of most genuinely wealthy individuals, we discover something fascinating about their journey. While they often worked incredibly hard initially, their breakthrough came when they transitioned from exchanging time for money to creating systems where money generated more money without their direct involvement. If you're experiencing a shift in how you think about work versus wealth after hearing this, type "economic awakening" in the comments below. The real revelation comes when your capital reaches sufficient scale. Suddenly, the market can pay you more while you sleep than your employer pays for an entire week of dedicated labor. This milestone represents a profound inversion of the traditional work-reward relationship most people never experience. While your colleagues continue trading irreplaceable hours of life for a paycheck, your assets generate income whether you're working, vacationing, or completely disengaged from the process. This isn't about abandoning work entirely. Productive labor remains necessary throughout life. The critical insight is that work alone, no matter how brilliant or intensive, remains insufficient for building genuine wealth. The world overflows with incredibly intelligent, hard-working individuals permanently trapped in the wage cycle precisely because they never accumulated the capital necessary to escape it. Their income, regardless of how impressive it appears on paper, stops the moment they stop working. The ultimate financial vulnerability. What's particularly fascinating is examining the psychological barriers that prevent most people from ever reaching this transformation point. The most significant obstacle isn't external. It's the profound disappointment experienced during the early stages of investing. When you've disciplined yourself to save $6,000 annually, no small feat for many households, and invest it wisely earning 10%, the annual return is just $600. That barely covers a minor home repair or a single medical bill. These initial returns feel almost insulting in their insignificance. The market essentially tests your patience, offering returns that seem completely disproportionate to the sacrifice required to generate them. This creates a decisive moment of truth on everyone's financial journey, a fork in the road where the mathematics of compound growth collide with human psychology in a battle that most people lose. The vast majority look at these puny returns and make a seemingly rational decision. Why bother? This clearly isn't worth the effort. They redirect those funds toward immediate gratification, newer phones, restaurant meals, vacations, or lifestyle upgrades that provide instant emotional rewards. The delayed gratification muscles simply aren't strong enough to endure the initial underwhelming phase of capital accumulation. What these individuals miss is the hidden exponential curve lurking behind those initially disappointing numbers. The early phase of investing feels linear precisely because it essentially is. The compound effect hasn't had sufficient time to demonstrate its true power. This creates the ultimate wealth-building paradox. The process feels most pointless exactly when maintaining discipline is most crucial for eventual success. Behind the scenes of every financial success story lies this same pattern. Individuals who somehow found the fortitude to persist through the discouraging early phase when the rewards seemed pathetically inadequate compared to the sacrifice. They understood intuitively that those unimpressive early returns weren't the end goal, but merely the necessary foundation for something far more significant. This understanding illuminates why so many intelligent people make poor financial decisions despite knowing better theoretically. The emotional pull toward immediate rewards overwhelms the intellectual understanding of long-term benefits. If you've ever felt discouraged by seemingly insignificant investment returns early in your journey, type "Patience pays" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have experienced this exact psychological challenge. What we're really discussing here is the psychology of wealth creation more than the mechanics. The years when your returns seem utterly insignificant, what I call the boring years, represent the necessary toll you must pay to eventually access compounding's transformative magic. This phase of the journey can't be skipped, accelerated, or circumvented through clever tactics or strategies. The mathematics of compound growth operate with complete indifference to human impatience or emotional needs. Don't miss our upcoming content on wealth-building strategies and financial freedom. Subscribe now and be part of a community that's serious about turning financial knowledge into tangible results. Think of this period as the financial equivalent of the dark night of the soul that philosophers and spiritual teachers have described throughout history. It's the extended stretch of seemingly fruitless effort where your dedication is tested most severely. During these years, your investment statements arrive with numbers that appear almost mockingly small relative to your sacrifice. Each market correction feels disproportionately painful because you haven't yet accumulated enough to absorb volatility emotionally. The revelation that separates eventual financial winners from permanent participants in the rat race isn't intelligence, connections, or even luck. It's the psychological resilience to continue methodically investing when the feedback loop provides minimal reinforcement. Most people simply can't endure the emotional discomfort of delayed gratification extended over years or decades. The human brain evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over distant benefits, creating an internal battle between your present and future selves. This challenge becomes exponentially more difficult because of another hidden saboteur lurking in our financial psychology: lifestyle inflation. The most reliable path to permanent financial mediocrity is raising your living standard in lockstep with every income increase. This behavior pattern is so widespread, it's practically considered normal in modern society. You receive a promotion with a 15% salary bump, then immediately upgrade your housing, vehicle, wardrobe, and entertainment budget by roughly the same percentage. This pattern, often disguised as rewarding yourself or enjoying the fruits of your labor, represents the ultimate form of financial self-sabotage. The simple arithmetic is undeniable. If your spending rises proportionally with your income, the gap between the two remains constant, preventing meaningful capital accumulation. You're essentially running faster on the same treadmill without moving forward financially. What makes this pattern particularly insidious is how it masquerades as success. Your material standard of living improves, providing visible evidence of progress to yourself and others. You drive a nicer car, live in a more prestigious neighborhood, and wear more expensive clothes, all the external trappings our consumer culture associates with achievement. Yet beneath this facade of prosperity, your balance sheet reveals the uncomfortable truth. You're no closer to financial independence than when you earned half as much. This lifestyle inflation trap creates a particularly painful form of financial purgatory. Individuals with impressive incomes who remain perpetually dependent on their next paycheck, trading increasingly valuable time and freedom for incrementally better consumption. They're running ever faster just to stay in place, creating the ultimate hollow victory. If you've caught yourself upgrading your lifestyle with each pay raise and realize how this might be sabotaging your wealth-building journey, type lifestyle reset in the comments. I'm curious how many of us have fallen into this common trap. The lessons of history often provide the most powerful insights into wealth creation. During the Great Depression, Charlie Munger observed a fascinating phenomenon: men walking around in expensive suits with impressive outward appearances, but completely empty bank accounts. This stark disconnect between perception and reality revealed a fundamental truth that most people never grasp. Appearances don't compound, only capital does. This revelation cuts against everything our status-obsessed culture promotes. We're constantly bombarded with images of wealth signaling: luxury cars, designer clothes, exotic vacations, all carefully curated to represent success. Yet these displays often represent the very behaviors preventing actual wealth accumulation. The painful irony is that many individuals sporting the trappings of prosperity are often one missed paycheck away from financial catastrophe. The authentic path to wealth requires something far less glamorous than displays of consumption. It demands the quiet discipline of consistently saying no to status games, neighbor impressions, and attempts to impress people you fundamentally don't even like. This discipline isn't exciting or photogenic. It won't generate admiration at social gatherings or followers on social media. It's remarkably simple in concept, yet extraordinarily difficult in execution. Earn more than you spend, save the difference, and invest it consistently over decades. The psychological challenge becomes even more profound when we confront another uncomfortable truth. Genuine financial progress remains almost entirely invisible to outside observers. This creates a profound disconnect in how we measure advancement. Most people sabotage themselves by confusing comfort with progress, genuinely believing improved living standards represent financial advancement. They equate a nicer car, larger home, or more expensive vacations with moving forward financially. Real progress operates under completely different principles. It's the growing balance you never touch, the compounding you refuse to interrupt, the assets silently appreciating beyond public view. Unlike depreciating consumer purchases and fleeting experiences that provide temporary emotional satisfaction, untouched capital works continuously, whether you're awake, asleep, or even deceased. It represents the ultimate employee who never takes breaks, never complains, and grows more productive with each passing year. This invisible nature of authentic wealth building creates a profound identity challenge. Humans are social creatures wired for visible status markers and external validation. The wealth accumulator must find satisfaction in watching numbers grow on statements rather than collecting compliments on material possessions. This requires a fundamental mindset transformation where intrinsic satisfaction replaces extrinsic validation, perhaps the most difficult psychological hurdle on the entire financial journey. Behind the scenes of every genuine financial success story lies this same pattern: individuals who somehow developed immunity to social pressure and consumer marketing. They found satisfaction in watching their capital grow while neighbors upgraded vehicles, renovated homes, and posted exotic vacation photos. They understood that financial independence requires making peace with being misunderstood and occasionally appearing less successful than peers with similar incomes. This perspective shift represents perhaps the most profound transformation on the wealth-building journey, moving from external validation to internal scorekeeping. If you've ever felt the social pressure to spend on status symbols while trying to build wealth, type invisible progress in the comments. I'm curious how many are fighting this same internal battle. Let's examine the fundamental difference that separates the wealthy from everyone else. Not intelligence, not work ethic, not luck, but capital. Ownership. When you own capital, you possess something extraordinary, leverage that steadily tilts circumstances in your favor. This leverage operates according to principles completely different from traditional employment. It requires no management, generates no complaints, experiences no sickness, and demands no pension contributions. It simply compounds, creating an ever-widening advantage between those who possess it and those who don't. The mathematics reveal this advantage with startling clarity. At a conservative 10% return, $100,000 produces $10,000 annually without requiring any additional effort from you. That's equivalent to working a part-time job at approximately $20 per hour. Except you don't need to show up, clock in, or trade your irreplaceable time, while the person without capital must continue trading hours for dollars indefinitely. Your money quietly works on your behalf, creating a parallel income stream that requires no additional sacrifice. This leverage represents the hidden foundation beneath every significant fortune. The narrative of working harder collapses under mathematical scrutiny when we examine how wealth actually accumulates at scale. The critical insight isn't about increasing your labor, it's about transitioning from being exclusively a laborer to becoming a capital owner whose assets generate their own momentum separate from your active efforts. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining another counterintuitive truth about building wealth. Contrary to popular belief, exceptional intelligence isn't the primary determinant of financial success. The investment landscape is littered with brilliant individuals who destroyed their wealth through poor decisions. The surprising revelation is that avoiding stupidity consistently outperforms seeking brilliance when building long-term wealth. Most people's financial trajectory gets derailed not by missing opportunities, but by actively sabotaging themselves through predictable patterns of self-destructive behavior. The most common form of this financial self-sabotage is status chasing using borrowed money, financing consumption that creates the illusion of prosperity while simultaneously preventing actual wealth accumulation. This behavior creates the ultimate mathematical contradiction, accumulating debt, which works relentlessly against you, while supposedly building investments, which work supposedly for you. The blind spots in this approach become apparent when examining the numbers. Someone proudly investing in index funds, earning 10%, while simultaneously carrying credit card balances at 20% interest, isn't building wealth. They're actively destroying it, while maintaining the psychological comfort of believing they're doing the right things financially. The mathematical reality reveals that debt compounds against you with the same relentless force that investments compound for you, and typically at higher interest rates. This explains why disciplined individuals of average intelligence often accumulate more wealth than brilliant people lacking financial discipline. The path to wealth doesn't require sophisticated strategies or complex financial instruments. It demands avoiding the common financial mistakes that permanently derail most people's progress. Lifestyle debt, panic selling during market downturns, chasing investment fads, and neglecting the fundamentals of saving consistently. The wisdom behind this approach becomes clear when we examine how the wealthy actually build and preserve fortunes across generations. If you've realized that avoiding financial mistakes might be more important than finding the perfect investment, type protection first in the comments. I'd love to know how this perspective shift impacts your approach. The secret that separates those who achieve financial independence from those who merely dream about it isn't found in complex investment strategies or insider knowledge. It's the capacity to embrace extended periods of financial boredom. Building that crucial first $100,000 typically requires approximately a decade of consistent saving, disciplined investing, and systematically avoiding poor financial choices. This timeline creates an immediate obstacle for most people who simply lack the psychological tolerance for such extended periods without visible excitement or immediate rewards. The journey to meaningful wealth requires accepting a fundamental truth that runs counter to our entertainment-saturated culture. Financial discipline isn't glamorous, exciting, or Instagram-worthy. It manifests as declining restaurant invitations while colleagues enjoy expensive dinners. It looks like driving a perfectly functional 10-year-old vehicle while neighbors finance the latest luxury models. It means skipping affordable vacations that you can technically afford because you recognize those funds represent soldiers that belong on the financial battlefield of compounding rather than the temporary battlefield of experience collection. This capacity for embracing financial monotony represents perhaps the most underrated superpower in wealth building. While most people desperately seek financial shortcuts, hacks, and excitement through speculation or consumption, the disciplined wealth builder finds satisfaction in the seemingly mundane consistency of regular investments and growing account balances. They develop immunity to the constant barrage of marketing messages designed specifically to separate them from their capital. Behind the success stories of nearly every self-made millionaire lies this same unexciting narrative. Individuals who somehow found satisfaction in financial processes that most would consider painfully boring. They discovered internal rewards powerful enough to counterbalance the cultural pressure for constant stimulation and immediate gratification. This revolution in personal priority setting represents a profound identity transformation that few successfully navigate. The ultimate reward for this disciplined journey arrives at a specific transformational moment, when your capital begins generating more annual income than your labor. Until reaching this milestone, wealth building feels like dragging a boulder uphill through sheer force of will. Every dollar saved represents direct sacrifice from your lifestyle. Every setback feels intensely personal and discouraging. When your investments quietly begin producing $10,000, $20,000 annually, potentially exceeding what you could save from your paycheck, you cross a profound psychological threshold. For the first time, you're not exclusively a laborer trading irreplaceable time for money. You've become a capitalist whose assets generate significant value independent of your direct effort. Your money whispers, "I'll take it from here," creating an extraordinary sense of partnership rather than solitary struggle. This moment fundamentally alters your relationship with money, risk, opportunity, and time itself. The anxiety surrounding job security diminishes as you recognize your growing financial resilience. Your risk tolerance expands as you witness your assets recovering from market downturns without depleting your foundation. Your perception of opportunities transforms as you recognize potential investments with newfound confidence rather than fear. The mathematics of wealth creation accelerate dramatically after this inflection point, creating a self-reinforcing cycle between psychological confidence and financial results. If you're working toward that moment when your money works harder than you do, type "capital partnership" in the comments. I'd love to know how many of you are approaching this transformational milestone. As we've explored this mathematical journey from $100,000 to your first million, I hope you've gained clarity on why that initial threshold matters so profoundly. The path to financial independence isn't about secret investment strategies or insider connections. It's about understanding the fundamental principles that govern wealth creation and having the discipline to apply them consistently when most cannot. Remember, compound interest doesn't care about your background, education, or even your income level. It only asks one question: do you have the patience and discipline to let the mathematics work in your favor? Can you resist the cultural pressure to consume today what could multiply tomorrow? Can you find satisfaction in watching numbers grow quietly while others chase the illusion of prosperity through consumption? The formula remains deceptively simple. Earn more than you spend, save the difference, invest consistently, and, this is crucial, give it time. The mathematical certainty of compound growth remains one of the few reliable paths to genuine wealth for ordinary people. The only variable is whether you'll allow yourself to benefit from it or sabotage it through impatience. If you found value in these insights today, I truly appreciate you hitting that like button. It helps others discover this message who might be exactly where you were before understanding these principles. And if you're committed to mastering your financial future, subscribe to join our community of like-minded wealth builders who prioritize substance over appearance. Drop compound clarity in the comments if you've made it to the end, and these ideas have shifted your perspective on wealth building. I read every comment and love connecting with those serious about their financial journey. If you're ready to take the next step, I've created a video right here that breaks down exactly how to accelerate your path to that critical $100,000 milestone. Click and continue with me over there, where we'll explore the specific strategies that can condense this timeline from a decade to just a few years.